Hello everyone, I am Barendipitous, and welcome to another Legend Lore Chat on the Brawlhalla Lore YouTube channel. So, today we are talking about Mordex, the Ravenous. And to think my order's own quartermaster, Octavius Mordex, was a stinking werewolf all along. Diana telling Ada the story of her betrayal.
Yeah, well, she should have suspected something when she found me sleeping under the porch.
Mordex. As the story goes, it is not easy to become a lycanthrope on purpose. A werewolf bite rarely works, because the bite is almost always followed by being eaten by a werewolf. Octavius Mordex, Lion, was ordered to take his team into the frozen north to hunt down a plague of werewolves and frost giants. He knew he had to plan his treachery carefully. Mordex had wormed his way into the noble order not to do good, but to get closer to the monsters whose powers he so desired. He overthrew the cult of the Ice Witch that reported their tome of rituals lost in the fire. He destroyed the Wraith of Darkmoor, but secretly took the fiend's great scythe Kull for himself. And now he saw his chance to gain power of a whole new sort. A year later, Mordex returned from the north with a tale of horror and victory. Trapped in an unholy ice storm, his team was surrounded by werewolves and giants. He told his tale of starvation, desperation, and a heroic battle. He was the only survivor. No one questioned that Mordex himself seemed quite well fed. Acclaim and promotion followed. Soon, only the vigilance of another hunter, Diana, stood between him and his ultimate target, the Geminius Virens, a cursed artifact hidden in the deepest vaults of the Order. Calling on dark magic, Diana and escaped with his prize. In Brawlhalla, Mordex is horrified and delighted to find the monster is his true form. Brawlhalla forms strange alliances, and Mordex finds himself in accord with the likes of Thatch and Azoth, much to the fury of his nemesis. Alright, connections. Diana was betrayed by Mordex and seethes that monsters like Azoth and Mordex are allowed in Brawlhalla, and she plots their destruction. So she seethes. She is upset. She is angry that Azoth and Mordex and other such monsters are allowed here. Fate's foresight of a flattened werewolf, possibly Mordex, led her to lure a vampire general into Avalanche Gulch. So maybe that's how Mordex saw his demise, an avalanche perhaps, flattened werewolf. And finally, Yumiko coils at the sight of Mordex for some reason. I guess fox and wolf kind of thing. I don't know exactly. But in any case, so yes, Mordex is the werewolf, and werewolves seem to have even classic gothic horror monsters. So when you think of gothic horror, usually you think of vampires and like Frankenstein's monster and all that kind of stuff. There we go. But werewolves seem to have older origins, reaching as far back as the origin of the word lycanthrope, which there's a person. So in Greek mythology, there's lycaon. So if you wanted to look that up on the lore wiki, but even so, werewolves were a source of legitimate fear back in the day, from the numerous reported werewolf attacks in 16th century France to its subsequent witch trials held to oust the monsters. Kind of looking for the monsters kind of a thing. Let's see. Mordex actually has a fun development history behind him that has nothing to do with his lore. I linked in the lore wiki. I put a link to a video in which Dolce, one of the devs, explains kind of the story of how Mordex came to be. I think I can't remember all the details off the top of my head, but there was I think some data miners found something in Brawlhalla about a character named Mordex, and I think the name Mordex was a name that they were considering for a legend, but it never panned out. And so people speculated, who's this Mordex guy? And then eventually, when BMG was trying to design a werewolf character, they decided, hey, Mordex is a good name for that. So, and before Mordex was a thing, the name Octavius was in Diana's lore. So they decided to use Octavius. They decided to have Mordex be Octavius' last name, which, you know, it works out real well. It's a really cool story. By the way, you'll notice with Mordex's SIGs, they're ice-based. So I'll need to look at the names of the weapons to remind myself what they are exactly. But I'm pretty sure his standard scythe is Cull, I think. But yeah, in both his gauntlets and his scythe, you can see ice. With gauntlets or scythe. So you can kind of see some ice powers in the gauntlets, which makes me think that maybe he just knows some ice magic. Huh. Huh. I don't see this going too well. And you got me. Good job. Nice. Yeah, like the side gets encased in ice. Gosh, I'm so awful at... Honestly, I'm better at unarmed than I am in scythe. So there are several things in Mordex's lore that I hoped would have more of a story. Wraith of Drakmor, I hoped there would be something about that. I couldn't really find anything of note. Sorry, not Darkmoor, that's what it is. A wraith is generally an undead creature, or it could refer to any kind of undead creature, really. But yeah, there's a specific undead type of creature in Dungeons and Dragons, for example. But it seems that whoever this Wraith of Darkmoor was, it was the one who had the scythe called Cull before Mordex. Whether Cull was built in with ice magic is hard to say, because it seems... I'm guessing the ice magic comes from the Tome of Rituals when he defeated the cult of the Ice Witch, perhaps? Although, I mean, I think that happened before his mission against werewolves and frost giants. So maybe he just got this ice magic as part of the fact that he became a werewolf because of the werewolves that were with frost giants, basically. So who knows? But I don't think that's something that's talked about very often. The fact that Mordex seems to know ice magic. So close to level 6. Anyway, Scythe and Gauntlets are interesting choices for a werewolf character. The Scythe is probably purely lore-based. Yeah, Cull, there it is. Looks pretty gnarly, I'd say. And then Rippers. I think those are just his claws, I would imagine. So I think the ice magic is just part of himself. So, but yeah, gauntlets make perfect sense for a werewolf. Werewolves would use their fists, their claws, in werewolf form in battle. So since Brawlhalla doesn't have a bite weapon, though Katars could be argued to be very large teeth or something, gauntlets more accurately reflect the way Mordex, the werewolf, probably would fight. But yeah, Cult of the Ice Witch, I wasn't sure if that referred to anything specific. I mean, there is the Witch Queen of Helheim, who is the goddess Hel herself. But yeah, like I say in the Cult of the Ice Witch page, my theory is that his ice magic does not come from Cull or his gauntlets, but rather, yeah, from the Tome of Rituals. I mentioned a few other well-known Ice Witches, the main antagonist of Lion Witch in the Wardrobe. Hans Christian Andersen's The Snow Queen as well, and Ice Witches from the Warhammer franchise. Geminius Virens, now that is something really interesting. So there's very little that we know about this, so I'd love to know why Mordex wanted this artifact so much. Did he end up actually getting it or using it? So Reddit and Discord and Twitter user Piox, also known as DRG Piox, Piox is spelled Piox, along with a few other Brawlhalla lore nerds, have done a bit of research into this mysterious cursed artifact, or at least the name Geminius Virens. So if you type Geminius Virens into Google Translate, you can get a Latin translation for close-headed. However, if you capitalize Geminius and Virens, the Latin translation changes to become beneath a verdant. I don't know what's going on there, but the reference to verdant led Piox to suggest a connection with the Feywild or Yggdrasil, because verdant is, that word refers to lush and rich vegetation. So, and Diana's lore did say that, she was dragged through some twisted, thorny woods, so she was probably dragged through Feywild to end up in Nastrand in Helheim. In some depictions of Norse cosmology, Asgard is situated beneath a canopy of Yggdrasil, the world tree. So could Asgard be the thing beneath the verdant? Is Geminius Virens meant to go to Asgard, or is it Asgard itself, perhaps? Or is it something connected to Asgard? Was that where Mordex wanted to take or use the artifact? But then again, technically Helheim would also be beneath the verdant because it's below Asgard and Midgard. So that's kind of as far as that particular theory has gotten. I would love to know more about what the heck the Geminius Virens is in particular. So, but yeah, that's about... but the fact that Google Translate sees it as a Latin phrase makes me hesitate to connect it with Norse cosmology, because Old Norse and Latin aren't... Latin leads to the Romance languages, while Old Norse is more of the Germanic, is kind of more connected to the Germanic family of languages, I think. Like where English is from, and obviously Scandinavian and that kind of thing. So, I don't know. But some very interesting things to think about. I'll also mention that I still chat with Ashy Arts on occasion, even though Ashy is a bit too busy to participate in these lore chats when I'm available. But Ashy and I did a really fun little roleplay, one-on-one, of Diana and Mordex, and the story of how the two of them, our headcanon is that the two of them could have been friends, maybe something more than friends, if Mordex wasn't evil and did not already plan to betray Diana and the Order, basically. So, but yeah, that was a very fun roleplay session there, the whole betrayal thing. But yeah, that's about all I've got for Mordex. So, until next time, GG, fellow lore nerds.